It's time to break it down once again. Another week in the BC Junior A Lacrosse League, and myself and Megan Kinna are once again here to take you through all of the games, all of the action that we saw in the past 7 or so days. And Megan, we have a ton of games to get through here. Just a quick peek behind the curtain. I have 16 pages worth of notes here, people. My printer got a workout. Megan and my voices are going to get quite the workout here. So. Ready to go here? We think we're good to go?
Let's go.
All right, first game on the docket was Delta versus the new Westminster Salmon Bellies. Death, taxes, and us starting off our highlights with a new West game, taking on those pesky Islanders. Lincoln Twomley kicked things off. Of course he did. Delta, though, would answer back. Not once, not twice, 3 times? No way. 4 first period goals from the road team, taking a commanding lead. Now into the second. After a pair from Ren Glanville, Cam Downey, breakaway, goal. Delta would reclaim the lead before the end of the period, leading to this. Jake Young on Cam Downey. Now that is bully ball if I've ever seen it. The Bellies love to make things dramatic though. Not their best showing yet, but Cooper Board gives them a chance. I mean, I guess he's a little open. That made it a 1-goal game until Jared Masnick hit a jumper from deep. It would not end up counting, zeros on the clock, but the Islanders still take it by a final score of 9-8. Welcome back inside the Palace here, folks. What a game it was from Queen's Park Arena. We did get the answer to the question from last week. Did I jinx the Islanders? And the answer is clearly no.
No, you didn't.
Pretty happy about that. Again, my dark horse team. I will have that quoted. I will continue to cement that. This Islanders team looks like just a team with a ton of confidence right now. They're absolutely rolling. And it also feels like a team that's being very much so rewarded by the process, being in those tight games in past season as well as in the early stage of this season where they come out on the wrong side of things. It feels like they've stuck to that process. They're finally being rewarded in some of those. And a very impressive defensive effort from Delta in that they held Nielsen completely pointless in this game. And they held Aiden McDonald to just 1 assist. And he's one of the top facilitators in this league, as we've talked about. So pretty impressive stuff for my money from the Delta Islanders on the defensive side. There was a stretch of 3 goals for Delta in this game in the third period. It spanned across 1 minute and 24 seconds. That, again, for my money, kind of ends up being the turning point. It was 6-5 by Jared Masnick. Rylan Weisbrod makes it 7-5, and then it gets wrapped up by Jake Young making it 8-5. That's the goal that we saw there just a moment ago on the highlights. New West was able to somewhat recover, but they put themselves into this position where you can't really make any more mistakes. And that's kind of a daunting mental scenario to be in. And that's kind of what I want to ask you about here, Megan. When you do find yourself in that position as a team that's in that position where you can't make any more mistakes for the rest of the game. And not only that, you have to take advantage of your opportunities for the entirety of this game, considering how the position you put yourself in here. What does that do to a team? Like, what does that mindset do when you know you have to be perfect and you can't make any mistakes?
Yeah, I think when you can't make any mistakes, it kind of puts a lot of pressure on everyone that's involved, right? All the teams are thinking, hey, okay, we've got to risk it for the biscuit, in my opinion. But got to risk it for the biscuit, and you got to be able to put the ball in the back of the net. But at the same time, you can't afford to make any kind of mistakes at this point in the game.
And then just to follow up to that as well, in terms of different times in the game where motivation is a factor, how much of that in this case falls on the coaches versus how much of that falls on the leadership group versus how much of that falls on the individual players in these kinds of scenarios?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty 50-50 split from like the coach's standpoint and the leadership group. Yeah, I think it's definitely 50-50. They're both relying on each other to kind of have really good communication. And during my time at Northwestern, being a student athlete there, being on the leadership group for 3 out of my 4 years, there was a ton of pressure to make sure that we have like great communication and everyone's on the same page.
Final score on that game once again was 9-8 in favor of the Delta Islanders. I did not jinx them, and I feel good about that.
Good job.
We can move on to the next game here. It was Langley versus Burnaby last Wednesday. Last week, the week prior to this one, of course, Langley decided it was finally time to insert their 2025 first overall pick, Parker Doyle, into their lineup. This week, they said, hey, let's just add another first overall pick. And wouldn't you know, Cody Malowski ends up making his season debut. There he is. Notches a primary assist on Bailey Vanichuk's first goal of the game. Between the legs of Caden Lee. Pretty safe to say he's happy to have his captain back in the lineup. Boardman gets paid, as they say, as shown here by Daniel Battiston. This would put Burnaby up 4-2 late in the first. But then, after Max Larson cut the lead in half, Jacob Glass wide open with the goalie pulled. 1 second left. Guys, maybe we should cover him. Feels like a good idea. The second is where Langley really started to turn it on, outscoring Burnaby 7-3. This fortunate rebound fell right into Cody Todd's stick. He made this a 9-6 game. Burnaby did not want to go gentle into that good night. It's an Interstellar joke.
Oh.
I didn't know. Much like Dr. Mann in Interstellar, it was a lost cause though. Doyle would end up scoring his first two career Junior A goals, and this Thunder train keeps on rolling. Megan, did we say last week that they were your dark horse team?
Yes, they're my dark horse team.
Yeah.
And they are chugging along.
We're going to get to more Langley games here after this one because they had a pretty brutal week of games, but a little foreshadowing, they are one of the hottest teams in the league right now.
I know.
Pretty unbelievable stuff. Already mentioned Cody Malowski is back. He is just an X factor for so many teams. We saw what he did last year with Coquitlam in the Minto. We saw what he did the previous year for Coquitlam in that Minto over in Edmonton. Just an X factor kind of guy. And we saw in this game just put on a show, especially in the second period. Just seemed like he could not be held without a goal. He was just consistently putting the ball in the back of the net. This was the second time that these two teams would face off. The first one was a 9-8 final in favor of Burnaby. So Langley obviously looking for some revenge and feeling pretty good after finding themselves in the win column. Some notable omissions from that first game: Parker Doyle, Cody Malowski. Now they're back in the lineup for this one, and they end up being big difference makers. They both fill the back of the net a handful of times. Burnaby is a team this year, just due to maybe some lack of availability, some guys that are in and out of the lineup. They're a team they're almost playing up, down, off. Like they have a lot of guys that are playing offense as well as playing defense, kind of in and out of the lineup, and kind of playing a variety of roles. That's just something to keep in mind with this team as the season continues on. There are a lot of guys that you're going to see playing offense one game, and then later on in that same game, they're going to be playing a third period out the D gate as well. For Langley, though, if we are looking to define their culture or define this team, I think resilient is the word to use for these guys. And again, that's a theme that's going to continue for this team throughout this stretch of games as well as throughout the remainder of the season, I'm sure. They're never not in close games. It's sort of like what we mentioned with Delta in the previous game. Even the games that they're losing, they're oftentimes still in. A lot of one-goal games, a lot of games where they're down by 3 or 4, they find a way to chip away and come back. That was the case in this one. They trailed by 2 multiple times throughout the first. They end up tying it late with 1 second on the clock. That was Jacob Glass who got that goal late. Pretty remarkable stuff for what he's been able to do so far this season. Neither of Langley's regular goalie tandem was available in this game as well. That's another thing that makes this win pretty impressive for them. They had their Junior B Tier 1 tandem in Marcus Kahn, the other of the Kahn boys. He got the start here. He was incredible. Arjun Gill played the role of backup here, but Marcus Kahn, I think this is his first career Junior A win, so credit to him. Made 42 saves. Caden Lee was also unbelievable for Burnaby, stopping 45 of 60 shots that were thrown his way.
Fun fact, I've actually done a shooting competition against Marcus Kahn.
Oh, yeah. And how did it go?
I won, but...
Of course you did.
Yeah, thanks.
Of course you did. Team Canada, humble brag.
Okay, humble brag.
Already mentioned as well, Parker Doyle scores his first career Junior A goals, and that's kind of what I want to ask you about here a little bit, Megan, is I want you to take us inside the mind of Parker Doyle here. he's a very highly touted prospect. He's talked about a lot, as every first overall pick is going to be. He was held without a goal in his first game, the one prior to this. In this one, he finds 2 goals. They're back-to-back. They're from the exact same spot, essentially on the floor. What is the feeling for him after the game? Like, how much excitement is it? Is there, anxiousness, like something off of his shoulders? Like, take us into the mind of Parker Doyle after this game.
Yeah, I think, just first off, like rewinding to the first game where he's held scoreless, it's definitely, you have very high expectations for yourself, and you have a lot of expectations not only for yourself, but from other people expecting you to produce. And when you don't, in that game, then the next one comes and you finally score 2 goals. It's probably so exciting and very relieving, I'm sure. And hopefully that the floodgates are now open for him.
And I would love to ask you, so I did a little bit of digging, and I want to see if my digging is correct here. I want to see if you remember your first goal as a member of Team Canada, the first time you ever played for them.
I actually do not.
Okay. Yeah. So I had to, again, like I said, did a bunch of digging here. Yeah. So tell me if this sounds correct. Obviously, for Team Canada, it was in the first overtime of a game versus England in the 2015 Women's U19 World Championships. Does that ring a bell at all?
It does, but everything blends together, and I cannot remember anything for the sake of it. Yeah.
Yeah, fair. Athlete's brain.
Yeah, athlete's brain.
It'll get you.
Yeah.
All right. Again, lots of games to get through here, so let's move on to the next one. And the next one was a shocker to many. The Delta Islanders took on the Coquitlam Adanacs, and this was an unbelievably uncharacteristic game from the Adanacs standards. They were the better team for my money early on. Like, they came out looking like the regular Adanacs team that they always do. They scored first, but it felt like Delta did a really good job of weathering the storm long enough for them to be able to find their offensive footing and find the back of the net. Coquitlam gets their looks, of course, like they're going to be able to do. Delta, though, when they did find their offensive footing, it kind of ended up being, if you talk about a turning point in the game, it was still early on, but Delta is able to score 4 goals in 3.5 minutes. And that's late in the first period, and that ends up being a situation where we see Jack Cass get pulled from the game very briefly, something that we sort of talked about last week as well, that goaltending or that coaching goaltending dynamic of pulling the goalie shortly just for a reset. Yeah. That seemed to change things at the very least for the end of the first period. The second period also carried over maybe a little bit of that momentum for Coquitlam, in that they were able to find their scoring touch a little bit again. They get a shorthanded goal from Parker Kennedy, which cuts the lead in half at the time. There was another then burst of these Islanders goals. It was another 3 goals in 3.5 minutes. And that would end up being the end of Jack Cask's night in total. He didn't find his way back into the game. It was Oliver Collette who came in to get the remainder of the minutes. Really impressive thing for this Delta team in getting this win. They did it without Jared Masnick, who has been such an offensive leader for this team. He's been a force all throughout the league, scores a ton of goals, puts up a ton of points, does a lot without the ball as well. They're able to get this done without him available to them. And this was another kind of deep dive I went in, because I was racking my brain after I saw this score and just trying to think about when was the last time that I saw this low of a scoring game that Coquitlam was involved in terms of their own numbers, but also when was the last time that we saw the Delta Islanders beat Coquitlam? Because it feels like every year. Like, I'm sure that there are some guys on this Delta team right now that have gone their entire junior careers and have never beaten the Coquitlam Adanacs, which is a big moment for them and something they're trying to build to. So we can throw a graphic up here on the board, but this was the lowest Adanacs goal total in a game since, we'll go to that one first then. We'll go to that one first. Okay, so the last time the Delta Islanders beat Coquitlam was in the Minto Cup round robin of 2016. It was a 7-4 win. Look at the goal total from Coquitlam in that game as well. Wow. 4 once again. Yeah. Pretty unbelievable. So it's been quite some time since the Islanders had been able to beat Coquitlam. And then now we'll go over to the other one. The last time that the Adanacs were held with that small of a goal total, it was a 6-4 loss against New West. These are some of the roster players on that Adanax team that were part of that game. Of course, Christian Del Bianco, now the goaltender for the Vancouver Warriors, Rylan Reese in Rochester, Reed Bowering, another member of the Warriors, Ethan Ticehurst, who formerly of the Roughnecks, he's since been dealt over to Vancouver in the offseason here, and Jalen Chaster, defender for Colorado, also the offensive coordinator for this Adanax Junior A team. So pretty unbelievable stuff that Delta was able to get this done for the first time in quite some time, and pretty unbelievable they were able to hold this Coquitlam team to that small of a goal total. So now my question, going back to you, Megan, is, I mean, we already talked about like you taking us inside the mind of a player in the last game. Take us inside the Coquitlam dressing room. How much, if at all, is this team feeling any panic or anxiousness? Like, is this loss just a blip on the radar, or is this something that they should be concerned about?
You know, I've been inside of the locker room with Pat Coyle before, and with a disappointed Pat Coyle after a loss, and it is not fun. So I'm sure they're hoping that it's just a blip here, and that they can just use that for fuel to come back for the next game.
Definitely, and again, this is a team with Minto Cup aspirations, I'm sure, and they did rebound pretty well. We'll get into that game here shortly thereafter, but yeah, I think that this would be more so. And again, that's a good point about Pat Coyle. I think that if anybody's going to make sure this is just a blip on the radar, I think he is going to be the guy to do exactly that. Next game on the list was the Victoria Shamrocks on the road, sort of. I mean, they're still on the island, but they went down the highway to take on the Nanaimo Timbermen at Frank Crane Arena, the Island Classic, as I like to call it. It is a rivalry as old as, well, however old these teams are. That part I'm not entirely sure about. Already up 1-0. Jeremy Woodrick, like a Saskatoon wrecking ball, crashes into the crease. Nanaimo would take an important early lead into the first intermission. Philip All Business Busenius then tied the game early in the second. Remember when I said the Shamrocks have no fun? No fun at all. I used to say now that Ryan Favreau and Coquitlam had the fastest hands out west. Now that he's moved on to senior, I think we may have to start putting Ryan Lowe into that category. He is automatic on the crease. Tied at 7, late, Tyson Fontenla. Clean takeoff, cleaner finish. He actually scored another one just about a minute after this. Nanaimo would take the lead and force Victoria into scramble/desperation mode. Not ideal on the road. Jordan Vincent would then ice the game. And look at the Nanaimo fans, they're going crazy. You can hardly contain the excitement in that arena. Yeah, Victoria takes this one. Final score would be 12-8. Or sorry, Nanaimo takes this one. Final score would be 12-8 at home. Yeah, rivalry game to say the least. Lot of tempers flaring in this one. 49 minutes in penalties split between the two teams, and that included actually one that resulted in a 3-game suspension to Josh Adey of the Timbermen. So he's now served 1 game of that, 2 more games left on his suspension. Nanaimo led for most of this game. Victoria had the lead once midway through the second period, but it lasted like 90 seconds, 92 seconds. Like it didn't last very long. Nanaimo felt like they were very much so in control. Victoria was able to battle back though. This is a positive in terms of the Shamrocks. They were able to battle back 5 different times in this game from multi-goal deficits. So pretty impressive. This is a point though, so this is according to the league website, and I have trust issues when it comes to some league websites in terms of their stats. Victoria here, in a tie game through 40 minutes, they're registered for 4 shots on goal in the third period. You know, not ideal. Maybe you understand why I have like some trust issues here when it comes to the stats. I almost don't, but like, how is that possible? That seems
ludicrous.
Seems outrageous to me. But I mean, we have to go by what they're giving us. 4 shots in the third period, not exactly a recipe for success when you're trying to mount a comeback. So when you're in that situation, 1 period left, tie game, it's a rivalry game. For a team to be held to that low amount of shots, how much of that credit is owed to Nanaimo and their game planning, and how much of that responsibility falls on the Victoria offense?
So we kind of talked about making mistakes earlier in this episode, and maybe Victoria is thinking about that during their offensive sets. They can't make any mistakes in this scenario. Then they have to put the ball in the back of the net. But I really think the credit is due to the Nanaimo defense and really just dictating the remainder of this game.
The Shamrocks have started to come back down to earth a little bit since their strong start to the season, so that's something to take note of. They had a 5-2 record just a couple of weeks ago. They're now 6-4. I'll let the math people figure out how many wins and losses since then. Yeah, not me either. Basically, just alternating wins and losses kind of thing since that 5-2 record. Something of note as well. We are just a couple of weeks away from the trade deadline. June 30th is the trade deadline in the BC Junior A Lacrosse League. I do still anticipate Victoria being a buyer to a certain extent. Like, I don't think they're going to mortgage the future or sell the farm or anything. But just something to keep in mind here. They of course want to find some momentum leading towards the trade deadline. So if they do decide that they want to buy, they can hit the ground running from that point on. I mentioned Ryan Lowe at the end of that highlight package. I just want to read off this stat line because this is just, to me, this is just a crazy stat line. So he finishes the game with 3 goals, 1 assist, obviously 4 points, 10 shots in this game, 11-4 face-off record, so 73%, and 4 penalty minutes in this game. So I don't think there was a stat line that he didn't have some dominance in, which is pretty outrageous, including penalty minutes there. We already mentioned it was kind of a fiery game, lots of penalty minutes here. And this is one more stat line in this game that I want to get out here, and it's a little bit of foreshadowing because I'm going to talk a little bit more about this later. Andrew Bowman, the captain for the Nanaimo Timbermen, had 5 assists in this game. So keep that in mind because I'm going to bring that up again after Nanaimo's game against Coquitlam later on in the weekend. Next one up was Megan's Langley Thunder against the Poco Saints. Did I mention that they are one of the hottest, not even one of, they are the hottest team in the league right now, which is insane. A minute ago, we were talking about 710 consecutive days between wins. And now they're the only team in the league with a multi-game win streak.
You know, they might have watched the episode and they might have caused some, some
bulletin board
material.
Let's go. Yeah, not too shabby. There are 2 insanely different yet similar storylines for me that come out of this game or that started to shape up throughout this game. One from the Langley side being if Langley ends up competing for a playoff spot by the end of this season, this is a game that I think they're going to point to as a major reason why. And on the other hand, if Poco doesn't end up competing for a playoff spot, I think that this is a game they look to as a major reason why. The reason why I say that, the Saints were in a commanding position. They were up 7-2, approaching the halfway point of the game, so just about the midway point of the second period. And they're getting contributions from multiple guys all throughout their lineup. They even got another transition goal from Levi Tui, who has set a new career high in pretty much every statistical category possible. He's having a really strong year out the D-gate for Poco. After that is when everything starts going in Langley's favor. And it kind of goes back to that point that we talked about before about how Langley is never out of a game. Like they're comfortable in these close games, even when they're behind. After trailing 7-2, they then rattle off 7 straight goals. By the end of this run, they're up 9-7 against Poco. And they're doing it on home floor as well, so they're feeling pretty good about it. They score 2 power play goals. They score a shorthanded goal. So they're at this point now where they're leading early in the third period. And during that stretch, Bailey Vanacek, he contributed to 4 of the 7 goals. Cody Malowski, remember, he's back in the lineup now. He contributed to 3 of the 7 Langley goals. So those 2 collectively as a pair are just on a tear together. It's been really fun and interesting to watch how Bailey Vanacek's game has elevated with Cody Malowski being back in the lineup. So now I've asked you before on a previous show about what the perspective when you're on the run against, when you're on the team that's on the wrong side of a run. Tell us about the mindset of the opposite side of that. For the Langley Thunder, when they go on this 7-goal run through the second period and early into the third, and they end up taking this 2-goal lead after being down by so much. What is that mentality like in the middle of said run?
It's exhilarating. I mean, it's so fun, and you're playing lacrosse. You're just having fun and playing free. It's a really enjoyable time, and you honestly don't want it to end.
Just like people watching the show, they don't want it to end either,
Yeah,
right? You know?
Never.
Poco did make things interesting later in the game with a pair of power play goals in the third period. But the thing is, Langley split those power play goals, of course, from Cody Malowski. Shocker. Of course, he finds the back of the net again. The Saints did end up having possession, essentially final possession late in the game. Heading into the final minute, they call their timeout. Ultimately, they can't get the job done. So listen to this stat line then. And there's more. I mean, there's going to be more Cody Malowski talk throughout the season, of course, now that he's back. There's going to be more Cody Malowski talk in this show. After he puts up 6 points the other night against Burnaby in his debut, he put up another 5 points in this game. The guy is just produces like crazy. So as mentioned, Langley did still have another game this week, so there are some more points that he does end up putting up. He is NLL draft eligible, I think, in 2 more years.
No way.
I think he's gonna. I shouldn't even say I think. I know he is gonna be a name like that people are gonna need to get comfortable with hearing often. This guy is gonna be already projected to be a first-round pick. It would not shock me if he's in the like top 5 at the very, and that's like a safe answer right now. Here in his final year of junior lacrosse. Crazy. We'll move on to the next game, and the Poco Saints got a chance to get a little redemption 24 hours later. They would face off against the Delta Islanders, my dark horse team, the Delta Islanders. Pretty excited about this one. Hey Saints, that's too many guys on the floor. Don't think you can do that. Josh Mills opened the scoring with just a textbook toe drag. That'll put a smile on a lot of guys' faces. Islanders captain Reese Young making his season debut. How does a goal on your first shot of the year sound? Pretty good? Pretty good. The Saints struggled to take complete control of this game. Rylan Weisbrod found a gap here, managed to tie the game ahead of the final frame. Midway through the third, Ewan Patrick finally gave Delta their first lead of the game. Don't get too excited though, because after Daniel Mahoney's pass missed Nolan Ross, Mr. Mills found it, fired it, scored it. That would be the game winner. 10-9 would be the final score. There's no better way for the Poco Saints to exercise some demons from a loss that slipped out of their fingers 24 hours prior than to just get back at it on home floor as well, take on this Delta team. Certainly not an easy win for them, and I think that's kind of a good thing for, mentality, mindset going forward. Poco held the lead multiple times for most of this game. Delta was just kind of always there, always chipping away. It was like 2-0, then it was 2-2, and then it was 3-2, and you kind of feel that theme as it would go on. I thought this one was going to be a barn burner after the first period. It was just like goal after goal after goal after goal. It was crazy. Already saw the Josh Mills eventual game winner with 1 minute and 37 seconds left, which is pretty impressive from him. And Daniel Mahoney, coming in, this is his first season with the Poco Saints. He's from Canton, New York. His third straight 5-point game. Wow. I think it's safe to say he's starting to feel comfortable with his new teammates. The Saints had 2 games this past week, so they're going to at least be happy to split that record. They dropped that one the night prior in a game they likely feel like they should have won, could have won. To be able to at least get one of the 2 wins, they'll be pretty pleased with that. And I want to make sure I mention this as well. Woodson McRae, he got called up from Poco's junior B1 team. Looked outstanding. Nice. He was such a standout player for me. He was going out the D gate. Just looked super athletic. He looked fearless. Was going up the floor. He was going at guys. Like, he wasn't afraid of scrums. Like, wasn't afraid of any moments that came in that game. I was really impressed by him. I think he's a guy that we could see called up, especially in the later stages of this season. With the trade deadline coming up, if Poco is a team that decides they're going to be a seller just based on where they are in the standings, I would expect somebody like Woodson McRae to get some minutes called up from that junior B team. Delta is going to be pretty excited to get their newly named captain, Reese Young, back into the lineup. He's coming back from an injury. His last game was last season. It was July 13th. So it's been quite some time. He's been running a gate for the Islanders for most of this season. So, he's just like been chomping at the bit, waiting to get back into this lineup. So he'll be pretty excited about that. And as we saw as well, scores a goal on his first shot of the season, first game of the season. And he's the one that I want to ask you about here in the kind of role that he plays. He's named the captain. It's his first game back. There's obviously a lot of excitement from the team, from himself individually. He scores a pretty big goal. How much excitement or how much fire does that add to a lineup when you're inserting your captain back into the lineup? He's a guy that's been in this Delta organization his entire junior career, and he comes out of the gates flying with a goal right away.
Yeah, I mean, that adds so much fire to the whole team. They're going to be pumped up. The whole roster is going to be fired up for this guy. I think with him scoring that goal too, it just adds so much, just another level of excitement. And then also him being the captain too it's exceptional.
Yeah, we can now look. There's been so many games already, so finally we can get to a team's next games because Poco was done for the week after this one. So the Poco Saints will be next up again tonight. They'll be playing against the New Westminster. So tonight at the time of recording, I should say. So when everybody's watching this game will have already happened. It's June 17th on the road against the New Westminster Salmon Bellies. And then they have their second game of the week, another one on the road. They'll go across the ferry to take on the Victoria Shamrocks. And speaking of the Victoria Shamrocks, they were in this next game that we'll be talking about here. They were playing at home against the New Westminster Salmon Bellies. Two teams in this case that are kind of looking for a bounce back. New West fell earlier to Delta earlier in the week. Victoria falls to Nanaimo, a game that we talked about prior. An interesting goalie dynamic in this one, in that Grayson Manning he's back in town now. He gets the tap and gets his first start. You get a look at him there. He gets his first start of the season for the Victoria Shamrocks. Actually, he might have played in the game against Nanaimo. I'll have to fact check that. But Jackson Hastings comes in for New West. Boris Maximenko was unavailable for this one. So an interesting goalie duo in the sense that, Angus Snow has been getting the bulk of the starts for Victoria. Obviously, Boris Maximenko is the usual starter for New West. Jackson Hastings. Again, my anxiety when it comes to trusting stats is through the roof right now, because I think this was Jackson Hastings' first career junior A start. I think. Okay. So if I'm wrong,
don't quote him.
If I'm wrong, I apologize. That's what I'm going with here. But yeah, and just going back to Grayson Manning here for a minute. With him now being back in town, like Angus Snow has got the bulk of the starts here, while Grayson Manning was still away at school. I would expect now it's going to be more of a tandem in Victoria in terms of their goaltending. I think that it's going to be more alternating starts. I'm sure Grayson Manning is going to get a little bit of a run here, but I bet you they're going to kind of go back and forth to try to keep some fresh legs and give Angus Snow a bit of a rest here. He's played a ton of minutes to start off this season. This was very much so. People talk a lot about the game of runs, that being a slogan in lacrosse. This was very much so one of those in this matchup. Spoiler alert: Victoria would go on to win this game. So apologies if you were waiting for that reveal at the end. But aside from once in the third period, New West they could not score multiple goals in a row. It was Victoria that was the team that was consistently going on these runs. Actually, 4 separate times they were able to go on multi-goal runs here. So a pretty impressive effort from them offensively as well as defensively to be able to hold New West for the most part to just like singles at a time, not really let them get a ton of footing offensively speaking. There were only 4 guys on this Victoria roster that did not register a point. And when you look at the other side of the coin there, New West had 10 players that didn't register a point. I think if you're looking for something to point at as one of the major reasons, I think that's obviously one. You just can't have that many guys. Not to say, I feel bad saying passengers, but when you have guys, even on the offensive side, that aren't contributing in a game that they kind of need to, that's a very easy thing to point at. Even Grayson Manning put up a couple of assists in net for Victoria, and Jackson Hastings in net for New West gets an assist as well. So obviously something that New West is going to address, I'm sure. And I'll ask you a question here in a second, Megan, but I just want to quickly run down the games for New West because they have a gauntlet of a schedule coming up here. So we already mentioned the game against the Poco Saints, so that's going to go on tonight at the time of recording. That game will be completed by the time that this is released. They then play back-to-back, so they go on the road against Burnaby on Wednesday. Then they get a couple of days off before they play back-to-backs again. So they'll go Saturday on the road versus the Delta Islanders before they come back home to New West to take on the Nanaimo Timbermen. This is where my question comes in for you, Megan. With this grueling stretch of games for New West coming up, how important is the recovery process going to be for these players between games throughout this week?
Yeah, I mean, it's so important. You have 4 games in 1 week. It's like you're playing a youth tournament again. You've got so many games. Yeah, it's super important that they bounce back really quick and they recover as much as possible. And looking at things like some of my favorite things to do is like foam rolling, getting as much rest as you can by sleeping, eating good and making sure that you're hydrating. So taking care of those things is going to be really, really important in between games.
Definitely. I'm sure they're going to be on the recovery beds throughout the week. It's going to be a pretty tough one for the Bellies. Next one on tap. We get closer and closer towards the end here. Still some games to battle through. Delta would get a chance at redemption. They would go on to face the Burnaby Lakers. This, for me, was a must-win game for Delta, and I mean that in a couple sense of that. One, it was the final game of a 4-game week for them, so they want to end off this stretch of games pretty strong.
Right.
So a win here would give them a 3-1 record in this stretch. Pretty important for them as they inch closer and closer towards that playoff picture. They don't want to waste a week where they got that win over Coquitlam. That's a huge one. A loss here would put them at 2-2. I think if people looked at the schedule, they might have, if they were looking at games a game that Delta might have lost throughout this stretch, they might have looked at that Coquitlam one. Of course, they end up winning that, so they want to take advantage of that.
Right.
And the last one, and probably the most important for the Delta or the Ladner lacrosse community, is that this was Thomas Hayden Day, which is a really big day in the lacrosse community, especially mostly within that Ladner community. So for anybody who isn't totally aware, it's a Memorial Day to honor the late Thomas Hayden, who lost his battle with cancer back in 2018. And so the Islanders, they usually have, and they just like they did in this game as well, they have a special jersey that they wear that has the number 6 on the arms in his honor. And this is one of the best things, I think, for Delta, having someone like Logan Schuss as their head coach and as their GM. He's Ladner and Delta through and through. Like he bleeds that Ladner red. I think if there is anybody that understands the importance of a day like this and that understands the importance of community involvement within a team, I think it's him, and I think that he would do an incredible job of articulating that to everybody being involved. Over the years, there's like in countless sports, we've seen, call them unfortunate situations if you want, just there have been different situations where it's resulted in communities rallying around a team that has gone on to kind of have these Cinderella stories, whether it's in an individual game or a season or whatever it may be. Tons of times in different sporting events where a community has rallied around a sporting event. And it's become this really big, important thing, not even just in the world of sports, but in outside as well. Clearly, that's something we saw here in this game as well. Delta would go on to win this game. What is it, do you think, about community support that inspires and like breeds these big team performances in sports?
Yeah, I think it's that like emotional vulnerability that like bands everyone together, not only on the team, but also like everyone who's in the crowd. I think there's just a genuine like effervescence amongst everyone that's there. And I think it's like a community behind you, and having that sense of pride and purpose as you're playing that game is really important too.
Definitely. And Delta clearly got the message in this game. They put up 20 plus shots in all 3 of the periods, which is only the second time that they've done that so far this year. So they're a pretty motivated group. And Jared Masnick back in the lineup puts up a 5-goal performance. So they were happy to get him back, I'm sure. For Burnaby, after trailing 6-2, they'd alternate goals for the rest of the game, which is a positive for them. Again, remember, they're a team that oftentimes has guys going at the D gate and the O gate. They're playing a little bit of up, down, off. So for me, that's a sign that at the very least, even in these games that they're losing, they're still an engaged group. They're not giving up in any of these games. Right. Certainly, I think, and this is kind of one where they just ran out of time. Also, running into an incredibly motivated group in Delta, like we just talked about. Totally. Delta played that was their last game of the week. Finally, again, they had a 4-game schedule last week. They only have 2 this week. And they'll have to wait a little bit of time before they get there. Friday, they'll be on the road to take on the Coquitlam Adanacs here at the Palace. That's June 20th. And then they go back-to-back on a game Saturday. Back home, though, against the new Westminster Salmon Bellies. A big week for them coming up. And then moving on to Burnaby, they also finished their slate of games last week with that one. So they just have 1 game on the schedule. So they can kind of, not relax, but a lighter week, considering what they've had to go through the past couple of weeks. Yeah. They'll play at home against the new Westminster Salmon Bellies. That'll be June 18th. Just 2 more games to get through, folks. We are my notes are almost done. Coquitlam versus Nanaimo. And that one went down here at the Palace, right behind us. The second time this season that these 2 teams have met in Coquitlam on a Sunday afternoon. And stop me if you've heard this before. Jackson Dillon opens the scoring. And stop me if you've heard this one before. Nathan Chalmers, hands-free, scores. And how about these new Coquitlam jerseys too? Not too shabby. Jeremy Woodrick driving downhill. It's just like he's out muscling everybody right now. That goal made it 5-2 in favor of Coquitlam. Now, Coquitlam on the power play. Where is it? It's in. Chalmers would get credit. Just trickles over the goal line. Okino had to be frustrated after that one. Got a piece, but it wasn't enough. Chalmers then would complete his hat trick on a pretty passing play. Not a bad vertical there either. Ryan Colsey would be held pointless or would not be held pointless in back-to-back games. In this one, he actually ended up with 4. That one that we just saw was his 3rd goal of the game, and the Adanacs would finish their weekend with a win. Pretty impressive effort from the Adanacs. They're another team that were likely pissed off, considering they hadn't played since their loss to Delta. Also, a pretty inspired effort from them in that they get their captain, Ty Banks, back into the lineup for the first time this season. He ended up with a goal in this game and looked incredibly motivated, as did the rest of his group. For anybody, Megan, that may not have seen Ty Banks before, what kind of a defender are we talking about here?
He is extremely athletic. He is also just a solid leader on the floor. He can direct everyone on the floor with him. And yeah, he's an exceptional player. He's really smart as well. So it's just a really good hustler too. Definitely.
And yeah, as mentioned, he scores a goal in this game. So he is, looks like he's in midseason form in his first game of the year, which is pretty unbelievable. Coquitlam storms out to a 4-0 lead in the first period here. They would end up finishing the game with 65 shots. Just absolutely peppering Nanaimo and Keegan Okino specifically. Nathan Chalmers and Jackson Dillon actually combined for 27 of those 65 shots, more than a third of their team's total shots on goal. Oh my gosh. Yeah, maybe we stop those guys from shooting so much. Pretty unbelievable. Those 2 actually also combined for 6 of the total 15 goals. Ryan Colsey and Oscar Lucas. I already mentioned Colsey. Lucas was the other guy in that Delta game that was held pointless on Coquitlam's offensive side of the ball. Colsey ends up scoring 4, as mentioned. Oscar Lucas ends up with 2 in this game. So they both came out with pretty inspired and motivated performances. Nanaimo got within a couple of different times. It didn't really matter all that much. Coquitlam, they go on their 4-goal run early and a 6-goal run late in the game. So it felt like this is a team that really had their foot on the gas for the vast majority here. I want to throw a graphic up here on the board if we can here, fellas. Jackson Dillon, who just continues to fill the net, is now just 11 goals shy of 100 career Junior A goals. So the count is on here for Jackson Dillon, I would say. Pretty impressive stuff from him. And I mentioned earlier in an earlier Nanaimo game an Andrew Bowman stat that I was foreshadowing at the time. So he puts up another 3 assists in that game. You might remember in that previous game that I talked about him, he had 5 points. He's now at 20 assists on the season, and he's now up to 123 in his Junior A career, in his career with Nanaimo. And for me, it's kind of begging the question, Will he pass the 150 assist mark before the end of this year? This is his final year of junior A lacrosse. He currently is 27 away from 150, and with 10 games left, he's on pace for 38 assists, which would be a new career high for him, and of course would smash that 150 assist mark.
Wow.
So can he do it? Yes. Will he do it? We'll see. We will see. Coquitlam's next games coming up this week. They'll play Thursday on the road against the Langley Thunder, and then they'll play Friday at home. We already mentioned this game against the Delta Islanders. For Nanaimo, they have 2 games as well. They'll be at home Saturday against the Langley Thunder, and then they'll go on the road across the ferry to take on the new Westminster Salmon Bellies on the following Sunday. We now move on to our final game of the weekend. Somehow we got here, and once again, I will say, no lead is safe against the Langley Thunder. They tied this game 3 separate times, and for the second time in this stretch of games, it's from the Victoria side, I should say. It just kind of feels like they're running out of gas late in games. Like we talked about that 4 shots in the third period against Nanaimo in their game earlier. They only had 8 shots in the third period of this game. And that's
Gonna do it.
Not really gonna do it. I think that's a pretty safe statement to say. Langley would go on to outscore Victoria 6-1 in the third period. Maybe a few more shots would help that, including 4 straight goals to close out this game. Cody Malowski puts up a 9-point game. In this one, he had 6 goals and 3 assists. And we can throw now this graphic up on the board here. He has 22 points in 3 games since rejoining the team. He is now the team leader in goals and points. He has 12 goals on 36 shots. So he's scoring on every third shot he takes, essentially. Insane. He's averaging 7 points a game right now. And the Langley Thunder are on a 4-game heater. This is insane, people. Didn't win a game all of last year. I mean, we don't have to go through all this again. We already talked about it ad nauseum. 4 wins in a row. This is unbelievable. And they're now only 2 games back of Nanaimo for that 4th and final playoff spot with a game at hand. Crazy, crazy stuff for the Langley Thunder. They'll get back at it this week. Of course, they have 2 games here. They'll be at home against the Coquitlam Adanacs. We already talked about that one. That's June 19th, before they go on the road on Saturday following June 21st against the Nanaimo Timbermen. I cannot believe I'm about to ask you this question, Megan, or I can't believe I'm about to say this, but this feels like a crucial week for the Langley Thunder, considering the way they've performed as of late. What should their expectations be in this week going up against teams like Coquitlam and Nanaimo?
Yeah, I think Coquitlam is definitely going to be, hungry still for another win after they took that loss earlier in the week. I think they're still going to be pretty hungry, but I think this is going to be a really good matchup. And then again with Nanaimo too, I think they're also going to be, right there with them. So yeah, these are going to be great games. I'm so excited to watch.
Yeah, this is a big week for the Langley Thunder. I cannot believe it. Victoria, they only have 1 game this week, and it will be on the road, at home against the Poco Saints. That'll be Saturday, June 21st. And it is time now, before we wrap up this show quickly, just 2 more quick segments to get through before we get everybody and ourselves on our way here. I want to throw up the current league standings in the BC Junior A Lacrosse League. And it's time for us to do some way too early first round playoff predictions. So we can see here on the board, we have Coquitlam still sitting at first place, 7-2 record, Victoria 6-4, Delta 5-4, Nanaimo 4-3. Like there's chaos in the bottom half of the league standings. Reminder to everybody as well that the playoff format goes 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3. It's the top 4 teams in the league that end up making it. I want to ask you, Megan, what are your predictions for the first round playoff matchups?
I think it's going to be Coquitlam, Langley.
Oh, yeah, spicy.
Dark horse. And then I think I'm going to go with like a wild answer here, but it's going to be No, I can't.
Come on, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Burnaby, Poco? That would be crazy. Not going to happen, but that would be crazy.
Burnaby with a second half of the year comeback. Insane. So Victoria misses the playoffs.
Ouch.
Nanaimo. My dark horse Delta misses.
See ya.
It's incredible. Okay, and then for one last segment here, I want to just rapid fire through the upcoming games of the week so we can throw those ones up on the schedule here. Megan, we'll just quickly go through them. First one up, New West versus Burnaby. Who's taking that one?
New West.
Coquitlam versus Langley.
Langley.
Delta versus Coquitlam.
Delta.
Langley versus Nanaimo.
Langley.
2-0 Langley.
Yeah, let's go.
New West versus Delta.
New West.
Poco versus Victoria.
Victoria.
And finally, Nanaimo versus New West.
Nanaimo.
Oh, baby. 2-0 week for the Langley Thunder coming up here.
That's my prediction. Let's go.
All right, that was a long one, folks, but that is going to do it. It's another edition of The Breakdown featuring Megan Kinna and myself, Tino Fera. As always, we thank you for joining us. We hope you'll join us for another one next week as well, and as per usual, we will.